Hello, my name's Sebastian Faulks and I'm a novelist from England, visiting Bombay as part of the Literary Festival and chatting with the British Council today. Ink Aloud, I think, is what I'm trying to do here, inking aloud. It's great to be here in India, where I've been several times before, and of course India has a great literature which has meant a lot to me and to other people in England. The novels I write are, I think you'd say, very serious, really. They tend to be about war, death, love, madness, serious things. And I suppose in a way you might call them old-fashioned insofar as they are not about me. A lot of writers nowadays write in a fictional form, but really just about their own experience, and that has become a very popular way of writing fiction. It's not really fiction, is it? It's memoir, actually. But, you know, the great thing about the novel is that it's such a loose and easy form. It can take all sorts of things. You can do it how you like it. You can beat it up and throw it on the floor and stick it on the wall and take it down again, and it'll still come back for more. The books I've tried to write over the years have been, I suppose, based on that model, the idea that a book must be centered on an idea, a theme. And this theme should have some intellectual strength, and the characters in the book are also very important, but they are subservient to the theme. And then the matter of plot, well, plot is considered vulgar in these, by these standards that I learned. But of course, things do happen in life. It's ridiculous to say that nothing happens. It doesn't have to be a car chase or a shooting, or an explosion. But people grow old, people die, people meet, fall in love, separate, bad things happen, but good things happen, change happens. I grew up in a world which seemed locked into the possibility of a nuclear war between the Soviet Union and the West. And now the Soviet Union no longer exists, and there was no nuclear war. I grew up in a world which had apartheid in South Africa. And guess what? It doesn't anymore. So things do change. So I think it's foolish to suggest that in life nothing happens and the only good novels there can be are ones in which nothing happens. The book that has sold most copies of mine, and for which I'm best known, is called Birdsong, which came out 25 years ago exactly, and is set during the First World War, which was such a catastrophe for Europe, but also actually for people from India who sent over 1 million soldiers into Europe to fight. It's 100 years ago, almost to the day, that finished. And my book is about the experiences of one man at that time as a soldier, but it's also his life before and after the war. So it's a book about the extremes of human experience. I have also another book that you might like to hear about. It's called Human Traces, which is, I wrote a lot of books early in my career which were about how we got to the point in the 20th century where we were living, and which is essentially through war and destruction. And then I thought, well, I've discovered who we are, how we got here. Now, what are we? What kind of a creature is Homo sapiens, mankind? So the next run of books were really about that, and the first one, Human Traces, looks at the question of madness and why 1 in 100 human beings is psychotic, hears voices, and is subject to horrible delusions. How can this be? No other species that we know of has this. So another very serious book, another very serious subject set in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. But in case you're getting the impression that I just only write very sad and difficult books, I am a normal person. I do have a sense of humor. I do have a family, nice children, friends. I play cricket. None of this comes out in my books, except in 2. One is a book, a James Bond adventure, which I was invited by Ian Fleming's family to write to celebrate the centenary of Ian Fleming's birth, 2008, and that was called Devil May Care. Annoyingly, it has not been made into a film yet, but my fingers are firmly crossed. And the other fun holiday book, if you like, that I wrote was a Jeeves story in the style of P.G. Wodehouse, which again his family asked me if I would like to write. It's called Jeeves and the Wedding Bells, and that came out about 5 years ago. I will continue to write. I have a new book out at the moment called Paris Echo, which is set, guess where, in Paris, and is about the interplay of past lives in the current day Paris, which is a very interesting, very multicultural city with quite deep-rooted, unresolved historical problems, with its past in North Africa, particularly in Algeria, but also its past in the Second World War with Germany. So I like looking at people's individual lives, their love lives, their passions, their day-to-day life, but in the way that it is connected to things that have happened maybe before they were born. And I believe that all of us are very, very subtly shaped by historical events, even if we are not aware of it. So these are some of the things I've written about and will be talking about here in Bombay. A lot of people want to write. They think it's an interesting and enjoyable thing to do, which it is. They think it'll make them money, which it won't. So my top tip, if you're thinking of being a writer yourself, is make sure your husband or your wife or your partner or your friends or your parents have a job, because you're not going to make enough money to put rice and chicken on the table. But my second tip is believe in yourself. No one is born a published writer. Everyone who has ever been published, and even if they've had a whole career in writing, as I have, began thinking, I can't do this, it's beyond me, it's too difficult, I will never be a published writer. But everyone started like that. Shakespeare, Henry James, all the great writers, all the great Indian writers as well. You have to believe. My advice really to people trying to write is, don't write just about your own experience. You used to get the advice I did when I was about 20, write about what you know. My advice to young writers would be, write about what you don't know. Write about characters of the opposite sex from yours. Write about people living in a different country at a different time. Use your imagination, let it flow. And then that's if you're writing fiction. If you're writing factual stuff or poetry, I know less about poetry, though I've tried and failed. It's pretty hard. Factual stuff I wrote as a journalist, but and that's just a question of spending a lot of time on the telephone and making sure you get everything right. But fiction, my top tip to all of you, make it up, let your imagination fly, don't be bound by your own life. Write about other people's lives.